Beginning Job chapter 19. Job has had a long series of talks by his friends, speeches in which they try to convict him of some wrong because they deduce from his suffering that he must have sinned. So if we can just get him to admit his sin, go before God and confess this, then surely his problems will all cease and he'll go back to his health and prosperity. So Job starts this speech by complaining about the treatment he's received from his friends. And then he has another complaint about the hostile treatment that he believes God is giving him. So he's really upset now. Job said, verse 2, "How long will you torment my soul and crush me with words?" I guess that most of us, or many of us, have had this kind of treatment at some time or other where somebody's upset with you and they just pour so many words on you. It's like offloading a load of bricks on you. They beat you down. And so he feels beaten down by his friends. "These 10 times you've dishonored me. You are not ashamed that you wrong me." He had not actually counted 10 times, but 10 is just the Hebrew way of saying complete. You made a complete set of speeches beating me down, dishonoring me. "Even if I've truly erred, my error lodges with me." And so, for some reason, this wrong that you imagine I've committed is hidden in me. It may be there, but I don't know it. It hasn't been revealed. It's hidden within. "If truly you magnify yourselves against me and argue my disgrace to me, know then that God has wronged me and closed his net around me." And so in making that statement, Job is hinting that he doesn't know why. Why? God's wronged me, but why? What did I do? And God has wronged me, that is, he's made me look like a criminal because of the result that you see in my flesh and my broken down homes and my lost children and so on. So now he turns to his feelings about how God has treated me. "Behold, I cry violence, but I get no answer. I shout for help, but there is no justice. There's no judgment. I don't learn what I've done wrong so that I can fix it up. He has walled up my way so that I cannot pass, and he has put darkness on my paths. He has stripped my honor from me, removed the crown from my head. He breaks me down on every side, and I am gone, and he has uprooted my hope like a tree. He has also kindled his anger against me and counted me as his adversary. His troops come together and build up their way against me and camp around my tent." When he talks about building up their way, is the old idea of putting up siege works. So I'm under attack and there's nothing I can do about it. I can't sue for peace. I can't try and discuss this with God. Just he's treating me in this extremely hostile manner. So he makes an appeal for sympathy. And perhaps he reaches his lowest point in all of this struggle with his illnesses and his losses and the unsympathetic friends who, in fact, instead of comforting him, are casting all kinds of aspersions on him. Verse 13, "He has removed my brothers far from me, and my acquaintances are completely estranged from me. because people have seen these kind of attacks on him. Whoa, we don't want to have anything to do with this guy. He's obviously bad news, and I don't want to be caught up in whatever it is that has entangled him. My relatives have failed. My familiar friends have forgotten me. Those who sojourn in my house and my maidservants count me a stranger. I am a foreigner in their sight. I call to my servant, but he does not answer. I have to implore him with my mouth. And so there's nobody he can turn to. Verse 17, my breath is offensive to my wife, and I am loathsome to my own brothers. Another word for offensive might be repulsive. He's become repulsive to his wife. Even his wife, the one person that, the last resort who might provide some comfort, is just repulsed by him. Even young children reject me. I rise up and they speak against me. All the men of my counsel abhor me, and those I love have turned against me. Men of my counsel is some kind of inner council that he might have had, a group of respected people with whom he could discuss things. They abhor him. My bone clings to my skin and my flesh, and I have escaped only by the skin of my teeth. Have you heard that expression, skin of my teeth? Lots of us have. They think it originated in this book of Job and was adopted quite widely. Pity me, O you my friends, for the hand of God has smitten me. Why do you persecute me as God does, and are not satisfied with my flesh? And so he just feels absolutely forsaken by everybody. Nobody can offer him any help at all, and the so-called friends are just attacking him. Oh, that my words were written, oh, that they were inscribed in a book, that with an iron stylus and lead they were engraved in the rock forever. For a long time they searched for any evidence that such a practice existed in Job's time, and eventually they did find an inscription, I think it's in Behuston, in which the letters were engraved in the rock and filled in with lead to kind of preserve them. Verse 25. As for me, I know that my Redeemer lives, and at the last he will rise up over the dust of this world. This is a difficult verse because there are difficulties with the wording, and there has been an interpolation. It says at the last day in many translations, but day is not there. And also it talks about he will rise up over the dust, and people have had to add of this world in order to try and at least give some sense to the sentence. But it's a very questionable translation. Verse 26, even after my skin is destroyed, yet from my flesh I shall behold God. And this again is something in which there's an insertion. In some translations it says, after worms destroy my body, but that's not how the Hebrew speaks. There are no worms in Hebrew, or at least in this particular verse. So it's even after my skin is destroyed, yet from my flesh, not in my flesh, because there is a grammatical construction here which implies separation, or apart from my flesh, I shall behold God. Verse 27, who I myself shall behold, believed to be talking about his inner self, is going to behold God, whom my eyes will see and not another. My heart faints within me. Some translations have reigns. The Authorized Version has reigns, but that's the way the Hebrews talked about the seat of emotion. We use the same kind of idea. I had a gut feeling about this, or I was upset and my guts were in an uproar. And so they used the same thing. They were unaware that our emotions are actually generated in our heads, in our brain. But it's often felt in our gut because we tense up, and that's where the tension eventually results in us feeling upset. Now, in the last couple of verses of this chapter, he makes a threat to the friends. If you say, how shall we persecute him? And the root of the matter is found in him, then be afraid of the sword for yourselves. For wrath brings the punishment of the sword, so that you may know there is judgment. So if you attack me, then know that you might be liable for attack yourself, because you're doing what's wrong. And in fact, God does speak very strongly with these men who repent. But they're trapped by their own theology, which they believe so firmly is right that they cannot give it up. And they find evidence that suits their position. And of course, that's what they quote to Job. But Job will eventually attack them and point out that the wicked, in many cases, don't suffer. The wicked flourish, and they have lots of children, and they have lots of possessions. So much for the theory that if you're wicked, you suffer, and if you're righteous, you're rewarded. Chapter 20 has Zophar's second speech. The speeches are going to get a little bit shorter, and they're certainly more terse. They're on edge, and they want to get Job well and truly convicted so that he'll change this stubborn clinging to his innocence and righteousness. Then Zophar the Naamathite answered and said, therefore my disquieting thoughts make me respond, even because of my haste within me. His disquieting thoughts, his divided thoughts. Very often if you've been arguing with somebody, all of a sudden the argument will pop up in your mind. Mine usually does this about 3 or 4 in the morning, which is inconvenient, but nevertheless. I had an episode of this a few mornings ago. I listened to the discipline which dishonors me, and the spirit of my understanding makes me answer. So he's reacting to the chastening or the correction which he feels has come from Job. And this is his response, that this chastening dishonors me. So the spirit of my understanding makes me answer. In other words, because I know the truth, I have to answer these dishonoring statements. Do you know this from of old, from the establishment of men on earth, that the shouts of the joy are short and the gladness of the godless momentary? In other words, he's kind of admitting that the wicked might have joy, but it's very short-lived. It's not a long-lived prosperity. Though his loftiness goes up from up to the heavens, and his head touches the clouds, he perishes forever like his refuse. Those who have seen him will say, "Where is he?" He flies away like a dream, and they cannot find him. Even like a vision of the night, he's chased away. So, in other words, he's saying, although the wicked might triumph, all their glory just flies away, and like a dream. His sons seek the favor of the poor, and his hands give back his wealth. So he has not prospered to the extent that he can leave anything to his children. And his children are begging from the poor. And his hands give back his wealth. Whatever he took from other people is eventually returned to them. So the rich have not benefited at all. His bones are full of his youthful vigor, but it lies down with him in the dust. So for all of his might, the guy who ran the 4-minute mile and the guy who scaled Everest and was a champion swimmer, he lies down in the dust. He's dead. He's gone. And only a few records are being kept of what they did. Verse 12, though evil is sweet in his mouth, and he hides it under his tongue, though he desires it and will not forsake it, and it holds it to his palate, yet his food in his stomach is changed to the venom of cobras within him. So, although he might dine sumptuously, he might get the best steak dinner there is, it's just going to turn into poison within him. So the wicked don't really prosper. This is a counter argument. He swallows up wealth, but will vomit it up. God will expel it from his belly. So he's painting a pretty grim picture of the wicked. And obviously he intends to attach these pictures of the prosperity of the wicked to Job. Yeah, you might think you've done great, but it's all turned to poison. It's all turned to nothing. He sucks the poison of cobras. The viper's tongue kills him. He does not look at the streams, the rivers flowing with honey and curds. And so he no longer possesses these rivers that flow with honey and curds. He returns what he has attained and cannot swallow it. As to the wealth of his trading, he cannot even enjoy it. For he has crushed and forsaken the poor. He has seized a house which he has not built. And so he's beginning to suggest things which Job might have done. He might have crushed the poor or stolen from them and then just dumped them. He seized a house which he has not built. So sins which Job may have, and perhaps in Eliphaz's mind, these are sins which he must have committed. Verse 20, because he knew no ease within his belly, in his covetousness he does not let anything escape. So within his belly, he doesn't have any rest at all. His belly desires. He's got some money, and what happens when you've got some money? You want some more. It's like the kid with ice cream. He has some, but he wants more and more until finally he's sick, but he's unable to stop. And so the wicked is unable to stop once he has acquired things. Nothing remains for him to devour, therefore his prosperity does not endure. In the fullness of his plenty, he will be confined, or the King James has, he will be in straits. In other words, he will be in distress, even though he has plenty. And that very often happens. The guy who has plenty, like the guy who wins the lottery, in a very short while, he's in distress. It's all gone. The hand of everyone who is troubled will come against him. So it will be that he fills his belly, and God will send his burning anger on him, and it will rain it on him while he is eating. He may flee from the iron weapon, but the bronze bow will pierce him. And so the bronze bow, or probably the bronze arrow, there seems to have been some confusion about the Hebrew word here. The arrow was probably made of bronze, and it would pierce him. He is drawn forth and comes out of his, it is drawn forth and comes out of his back, even the glittering point from his gall. Bouts of dread come upon him. Complete darkness is held in reserve for his treasures. A fire unfanned will devour him. It will consume the survivor in his tent. This is the lot of the wicked people, and it's bound to happen now to Job. The heavens will reveal his iniquity, the earth will rise up against him. The increase of his house will depart, his possessions will flow away in the day of his anger. And his anger there, his is capitalized because it's a reference to God. So in the day of God's anger, everything the wicked man has gained will be gone. This is the wicked man's portion from God, even the inheritance decreed to him by God. So far as finished his speech. And Job responds. The Hebrew language has a great shortage of vocabulary. And so when they say Job answered, he's not responding to a question. The idea is Job responded. The ancients had this way of saying things. So Job's response is, listen carefully to my speech, and let this be your way of consolation, or this way of learning the truth. So now Job's demanding attention. He's going to set them straight, or try to set them straight. Bear with me that I may speak. Then after I've spoken, you may mock. As for me, is my musing to man? Musing there is a complaint. Is my complaint to man? And why should I not be impatient? Look at me and be appalled. Put your hand over your mouth. In other words, friends, it's time for you to shut up. Job's heard enough. He's getting really impatient. The friends of each made 2 speeches without solving Job's problem. And so they've fallen back on their standard theology. And Job is fed up with this. Even when I remember, I am dismayed, and horror seizes my flesh. Now, why do the wicked still live, continue on, also become very powerful? So why don't they suffer? You say this is what happens, this is what has been decreed, but it's not happening. Their seed is established with them in their presence, and their offspring before their eyes. One of the men, Bildad, had actually said that the wicked men died childless. And Job is flatly contradicting that statement. Their houses are safe from dread. The rod of God is not on them. His ox mates and does not fail. His cow calves and does not miscarry. They send forth their little ones like the flock, and their children skip about. So this is probably the sheep. And so all of this is happening to the rich. If your theory is true, why? They spend their days in prosperity, and suddenly they go down to sheep. In other words, they don't suffer a long lingering death. They enjoy their prosperity right up to the last minute, and then suddenly they die. Isn't that what we all want? We know we're going to end sometime, but we want it to be sudden, you know. I get into bed and I don't wake up the next morning. And I had a good meal, and I'm doing well, I'm in a comfortable house and everything, and that's it. And so this is what happens. Verse 27. Behold, I know your thoughts and the plans by which you do violence against me. So I know what you mean by all of these statements. And you are doing violence against me. Have you ever been in a discussion and suddenly felt you're not just listening to some reasoning, but you're being attacked? And so this is how Job feels. You say, where is the house of the nobleman, and where is the tent, the dwelling place of the wicked? Have you not asked those who pass by along the way, and do you not recognize their witness? That the wicked is reserved for the day of disaster. They will be led forth at the day of fury. Who will declare to his face about his actions, and who will repay him for what he has done? And so eventually there will come an end, but meanwhile they are enjoying pleasure. While he is led forth to the grave, men will keep watch over his tomb, probably to prevent vandalism. The clods of the valley will gently cover him. Moreover, all men will draw up after him, while countless ones go before him. So he's going to be peaceful in death. He's not even going to come to a miserable place of punishment after he dies. How then will you vainly comfort me? Indeed, when your answers remain full of falsehood. So the friends obviously believed that they had been comforting him because they had been showing a way out of his miserable state. If you just confess your sins, everything's going to be okay. And their answers, their speeches have been full of falsehood because they are trying to convict him of sin when he hasn't sinned. And we know he hasn't sinned because in the first chapter, the scenes in heaven, we know that God said that he was perfect. In the first cycle of speeches, the friends made their plea to Job on the basis of a general view of God. God is good, God is just, he is omnipotent, he has insight into all things. So if you're suffering, he knows about it, and you need to correct it. In the second cycle, they emphasized the characteristics of the wicked and the retribution that falls on them. What they believed in was called retributive justice. You sinned, you suffered, you were good, you prospered. Simple as that. So we could tell everybody here whether he was righteous or sinful just by whether, well, you're all here and you're all well dressed, so guess what? You're all righteous, sinless. And that's how the Friends operated. But there's this temptation to make judgments about people. The minute you meet them, you want to sum them up and judge them. You know, he's an introvert, this is an extrovert, this guy is boastful, this is narcissistic, and so we go. And this guy's obvious as a schemer and a crook. And so we've got everybody pegged. And the thing is, we don't know. If the knowledge that God had given in the first chapter, that Job was blameless, was given to these three wise men, these friends, they would have realized that something had gone wrong with God's scheme, and they would also have been looking for answers instead of just saying, we know the answer. So we need to be very humble, because it's very difficult to know everything about a person. We know very little about other people. And I read a very interesting book called What We Don't Know About the People We Don't Know, because we tend to make these instantaneous judgments. And Gladwell was pointing out that even those who have some expertise, judges and so on, don't really know the person that they're judging. They might be judging a particular action, and there's evidence for that, but they really don't know what motivates the person. And so we don't know that, so we need to give everybody a great heaping of the benefit of the doubt and just regard everybody as good. And I think if we regard everybody as good, what we will receive from them will be good as well. And so be careful, not like the Friends. Yeah.
It seems like this whole doctrine, or the way of looking at if you're a bad person, bad things should happen to you, it's almost like that's the way we would run the world, right?
Yes.
Bad people would have bad things, good people would have good things happen to them, right?
Yeah.
That's the way I would run the world.
Yeah.
So if good things would happen to good people, then everybody would want to treat me in a good way so that good things could happen.
Yeah.
Right? It's almost like it's almost, would you say, do you agree with that?
It's almost a commercial deal. I'm going to be good because you're going to do good things for me.
Would that be an outcropping of idolatry? I made the idol, so why can't I just make up the rules?
Well, they are, you know, the existentialist makes up the rules for himself. Yeah. And whatever's right with him is right. And it doesn't have to apply to you. But this makes God, as Satan said to God in the beginning, well, of course he's doing well. You put a hedge around him. He's believing in you because you're going to bless him. Or he's not, if he doesn't believe in you, then you're going to take everything away. And so that was Satan's feeling. And so Satan was allowed to try and disprove God's faith in Job by taking everything away from him. And so yes, it makes God just a dealer. Yeah. And I'll strike a deal with God. I'll believe in you, and I expect that everything's going to go well with me.
But if that wasn't true, then we would have this building intact.
Yes.
Right? Because all the good people would be here to get good stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's what the prosperity doctrine is attractive to people. That, you know, if you pray and so on, and if you give a good contribution, of course, then everything's going to go well with you. It's like you're making a deal with God in that kind of religious scenario. And this is disproving that that's the case. And so Job is looking for answers. And as we begin the third cycle of speeches here, they're tired of skirting the subject, or they're tired of talking nicely about it and asking Job to think about this and find out what he's doing. They're making more direct arguments. So we come to Eliphaz the Temanite. Can a mighty man be of use to God, or an insightful man be useful to himself? In other words, the characteristics expected, but they don't benefit God. Is there any pleasure to the Almighty if you're righteous, or profit if you make your ways perfect? I mean, that's what he expected from you, and so when you get just what you expect, there's no particular joy in that. That's what it should be. Is it because of your reverent fear that he reproves you, that he enters into judgment against you? This is a kind of sarcastic argument. Is not your evil great and your iniquities without end? You've taken pledges of your brothers without cause and stripped the clothing of the naked. To the weary you've given no water to drink. From the hungry you've withheld bread. But the earth belongs to the mighty man, and the highly respected man inhabitants. The mighty man is one who's so strong that he's liable to make an unscrupulous use of his power. I've got power, so I can push you around. I can make sure that your life is made miserable. You've sent widows away empty, and the might of the orphans has been crushed. Therefore, snares surround you, and sudden dread terrifies you, or darkness that you cannot see, and an abundance of water covers you. So there's their argument in a nutshell. All of these things have happened, therefore. Job is now going to be challenged to rethink what he's been trying to maintain, that he was sinless and righteous. Verse 12, is not God in the height of heaven? Look also at the distant stars, how high they are. Eliphaz is trying to say that maybe Job thought that God was too far away to see. And God's not concerned with me down here, little me. I'm just the tiniest speck in all of the great heavens. And so you say, what does God know? Can he judge through the dense gloom? So you say, this is obviously, he's saying to Job, this is what you think. Okay. You think that God doesn't know. Clouds are a hiding place for him, so that he cannot see, and he walks in the vault of heaven. Will you keep to the ancient path which wicked men have trod, who were snatched away before their time, whose foundations were washed away by a river? They said to God, depart from us, what can the Almighty do to them? Yet he filled their houses with good things, but the counsel of the wicked is far from me. And so Job is challenged to think again. The righteous see and are glad, and the innocent mock them, saying, truly, those who rise against us are wiped out, and their abundance the fire has consumed. And so they feel as if they are safe while practicing the wicked. Job thinks he's okay, and God can't see what's happening. Yes, and God's too far away to know about it. And they're saying to Job, that's what you they're saying to Job, is this what you think, that God doesn't know? I remember an account of a man who made the first flight in a helium balloon over Africa. And he took off from Zanzibar, just off the coast. And there was a high wind blowing, and it blew this balloon. When you go up in a balloon, you're at the mercy of the winds. There's nothing much you can do about it, except try to ascend higher and get out of the stream of air or come down. So anyway, it was the High Commissioner was being given this first ride, because these guys intended to make safaris by balloon, photograph animals from the air, where the animals wouldn't see them coming, they wouldn't look up, and they'd be able to get shots that had never before been seen. So they took this High Commissioner up in the first flight. And as they go over Africa, he says, you can hear sounds on the ground extremely well. You're moving with the air, so the wind is not blowing the sound away. You're just moving with the stream of air. And they hear this chopping noise down below. And the commissioner knows that this is a woodland area where tree felling is forbidden. And so, so he says in a loud voice, I can see you cutting trees down there. And these guys quickly hide. And he said, I can still see you, you can't hide. So these guys are terrified at this voice coming from above, accusing them of criminal activity, and they can't hide from his gaze. So I don't know what they did with him eventually, but it was good fun while it lasted, for the commissioner anyway. But we think God can't be up there seeing us. He's too far away. And so we have a final appeal to Job to return to God. Yield now and be at peace with him. Thereby good will come to you. Please receive instruction from his mouth and set his words in your heart. And so that's the plea. Give in, admit what you're doing wrong, listen to God, and do what he's asking. If you return to the Almighty, you will be restored. If you remove unrighteousness far from your tent and put your gold in the dust and the gold of Ophir among the stones of the brooks, then the Almighty will be your gold, choice silver to you. Then you will delight in the Almighty and lift your face to God. You will entreat him and he will hear you. You will pay your vows. You will decree a thing and it will be established for you, and light will shine upon your ways. When some are cast down, you will speak with confidence, and the humble person he will save. He will provide escape for one who is not innocent, and he will escape through the cleanness of your hands. So here are all of these promises that he's making, that God is going to be better than gold or silver if you handle God correctly. If you do things that are right, then God would save you. The humble person he will save. In other words, Job, you're proud. And Job probably was proud in a way, because he kept on insisting on his innocence, even though these attacks kept on coming. And so this is an appeal to Job to return to God. So now Job speaks again. It's hard to keep these guys satisfied. It's hard to get rid of them. So Job answered and said, even today, my musing or complaint is rebellion. His hand is heavy despite my groaning. Oh, that I knew where I might find him, that I might come to his seat. I would arrange my case for justice before him and fill my mouth with arguments. I would know the words which he would answer and discern what he would say to me. And so he just wants to get to talk to God about this. And I don't know how much they believed in prayer at this time, but he could not find any peace at all. He doesn't think he'll find peace until he finds this audience with God. Verse 8, behold, I go forward, and he is not there, and backward, but I cannot discern him. When he acts on the left, I cannot behold him. He turns on the right, I cannot see him. This is the Hebrews did not seem to have, at this time anyway, the idea of north, south, east, and west. So they're talking as if they were facing east. So I go forward, so he's going east now. He's not there. Backward, I cannot discern him. So that would be going west. When he acts on the left, so if you're facing east, what's on the left? North. And so on. That's just, the Hebrews have got a shortage of vocabulary, so that's how they have to handle it. Verse 10, he knows the way I take. When he has tested me, I shall come forth as gold. That seems like a very proud statement for Job, but nevertheless, that's his belief. And we're going to have to leave him there and come back next time and see how he continues his argument and his arguments about the wicked. Okay, thanks.